Ben Burkay Adalı, Meleklerin Payı. Bugün çok özel bir konuğumla nefis bir sohbet gerçekleştireceğiz. Gerçekten Türkiye'de olduğu için ben de heyecanlıyım, çok mutluyum. Efsanevi bir viski ailesinin bir ferdi, bir üyesiyle birazdan bir sohbet gerçekleştireceğiz. Kitaplarımı okuyanlar, videoları seyredenler, işte blogumu takip eden okurlar, takipçiler çok iyi biliyor ki Glenfiddich, Balvenie gibi çok iyi bilinen müthiş damıtımevlerinin kurucusu William Grant ailesi ve daha sonra William Grant and Sons haline gelmiş olan şirket şu anda İskoçya'nın en önemli aile business'ları, aile şirketi şeklinde olan viski firmalarından bir tanesi. William Grant uzun yıllardır, ilk kurulduğu yıllardan beri, 1800'lerin sonundan beri hep aile şirketi olarak devam etmiş bir şirket ve önce Glenfiddich ile başlayan, The Balvenie ile devam eden, daha sonra Girvan, bir tahıl damıtımı olan Girvan'ın kurulması ve Glenfiddich ve Balvenie'nin üzerine Grant's, dünyanın en çok içilen viskilerinden olan Grant's'in de portfolyoya eklenmesiyle dünyanın en ünlü, İskoçya'nın en büyük viski ailelerinden olmuş bir aile. Son yıllarda da Kinninvin'in de eklenmesiyle portfolyosu genişleyen bir aile. Bugün yanımdaki konuğum gerçekten çok değerli, heyecanlanıyorum çünkü William Grant and Sons diyoruz, soyad Grant. Yanımda ailenin dördüncü kuşak üyelerinden William Grant'in büyük torunu Kirsten var. Kirsten Grant Meikle var. Sohbetimize İngilizce devam edeceğim. Altyazımız olacak. Oradan umarım rahatça takip edebileceksiniz. Kirsten, it's so lovely to have you in Turkey, in Istanbul. Hope you enjoy your stay so far. Yeah, we are in this beautiful environment, and we just tasted this great portfolio of House of Hazelwood. So I'm also a bit happy after that range of whiskies. We'd like to learn about your journey actually, because when we say you're the descendant of this wonderful, great whiskey family, I just talked about William Grant and Sons, as you may expect it from the names. You understand Turkish now. Yeah, one would think that you're born into this whiskey family, so I mean, from early on, you will be drinking whiskey all day, or in the business all day. But it's like a later interest for you in life. So, can you talk about your personal journey?
Yes. So, it was never in my plans really to work in the William Grant's business. I started off actually working behind the bar. I ran a wine bar, and I had a real interest in wine. And from that, I went to work for a company called Matthew Clark in the UK, who are the biggest wholesale distributor of beers, wines, spirits, and soft drinks. So I worked with them for 7 years, firstly in sales, and then ended up being one of the wine buyers, which was really great role. I loved it a lot, and I learned an awful lot. I did a lot of studying while I was there. And then I was approached by Charles Gordon, Uncle Charlie, he was asking me if I would like to join William Grant, because at the time we needed to put more focus into building our brands in the on-premise, in the bars and restaurants, and this is what I'd been doing at Matthew Clark. So I ended up at Grant's, and that was 13 years ago.
Great. That's a great story, because I believe that kind of expertise is also very important, that you're behind the bar, the customer, and then you're in sales, marketing, and then wine. I'll talk about wine more, but the family heritage is incredible for over 100 years, after the big distilleries like Glenfiddich, Balvenie, but it's not just limited to those distilleries. The family has a wide range of interest over different distilleries, and I believe they have this kind of collection over the years, right?
Yes. So in addition to the core whiskey business and brands, we actually, it was Charlie Gordon who moved the business from being a whiskey company into a premium spirits business, and that was started to happen around about the 90s. So we have distilleries in other parts of the world. We make American whiskey, we make tequila, Irish whiskey, and some other gin. We just acquired some gin, but we also have, being a family business, if not one of the biggest, if not the biggest collections of stock laying down, and that's down to our family ownership over the last 130, 40 years. So, and being 100% owned by the family, we are not under pressure to sell anything if we don't feel it's the right time. And that has allowed us complete independence and the freedom to make decisions for the long term.
That's great. I believe that's something very interesting for us, because we know there are many companies with great stock collections and everything, but you're a family and it's actually a personal collection. So, and as you said, you know, you wait for the right time, and I believe that led to the creation of House of Hazelwood, and you know, that's a very personal project from our tasting also. I felt that, you know, so how can you talk about, how would you say about House of Hazelwood, and where does the name come from? Why Hazelwood House?
Well, Hazelwood House is actually a place, it's a house. It's the Gordon family house. So my great aunt, Janet Sheed, also known as the Wee Janny, I know you've written about her in the past, and she lived in the house. So she was the oldest living person in Scotland, and she lived in Hazelwood House till she was 110. So she lived in the house for 80 plus years.
Oh, she lived there?
Yeah. And so we have wanted to have a legacy almost to her and to the house, and we use the house now for the Hazelwood business, and the family stay there still sometimes, and some of our very important guests will stay. But yeah, it's actually a place. So kind of by default it became a brand home, which wasn't really the plan in the first place, but it encapsulates gives us a great umbrella brand for these interesting stock parcels that we have had laid down for 60 plus years in a lot of instances. And these stock parcels were, you know, whiskies that have been traded, have been acquired and swapped by my uncles Sandy and Charlie, you know, going back as far back as the early 60s. So yeah, we are able now to bring these to market, which for me is certainly a very, very emotional, and you know, I'm very close to this project because I was very close to my uncles.
That's great. That's lovely to hear, because she's your aunt, great aunt, Janet. She has a photo in my book, you know, like the oldest person in UK when she passed away. She looks like a wonderful lady, and I didn't know you call her Wee Janet.
Wee Janet, because she was so small.
She was small, yeah. Okay, perfect. And your uncles Charlie and Sandy also, you know, responsible for this cask collection, and you know, almost like the start of this business, which now you're leading. And we tasted some examples. I mean, incredible, 44 years, 58 years. One of the oldest grain whiskey I've ever tasted. And I believe out there we don't have that many old grain whiskies. I mean, how would you describe the collection? What kind of whiskies there is in the collection?
Wow, well, there's a lot of bottles of small parcels, and as I said, we're very lucky to have this collection because it's been built up through years of family ownership, and we give ourselves the freedom to experiment. So a lot of these things are experiments and techniques and ways of making whiskey that just don't really exist anymore. So it really is a museum and a history of the Scotch industry. And as we've been working through the samples and working through what we've got in the inventory, we're starting to build a picture of what was happening at the time, and asking ourselves why we might have these, and what was Uncle Charlie and Uncle Sandy doing to make it like this, and where did it come from, and why do we have it? And that's part of the legacy of the Hazelwood collection as well, is this insight into history.
Snapshot of Scotch whiskey history, because it's very diverse portfolio. I mean, I've tasted this very old grain whiskey. There's a blended malt, you know, there's this island whiskey version. I mean, and actually I really appreciated that we don't disclose the distilleries, because you can focus on the liquid. You know, this is something sometimes I also myself just focus on the distillery a lot and just can miss the liquid, and in that sense I believe it's...
And that's, you know, it's a gentleman's agreement in the industry that
of
we
course,
don't, and we're quite happy with that. We let the liquid do the talking, and in a lot of instances the liquid has had some kind of cask influence or some process in the aging that you might not even recognise it, even if you knew what it was. So when you go back to the grain, the old grain that we had finished in an Oloroso sherry cask, you know, it's 57 years old. You're just not going to find things like that on the market anymore, ever. You know, the blended at birth, which is a process that was basically stopped in 2009. So there is nothing like that on the market. So yeah, it's certainly very
Blended
unique.
at birth is actually, sorry, I interrupted, but it's a very exciting for me also. So they create the whiskies as new make, and then they cask it together, and then it ages as a blend.
Yeah.
Normally, blends are done with aged whiskies, and it's a very interesting project.
It's a concept that was allowed back in the day in the early 60s, but nobody in the industry is going to have any of this stock at 57 years old. And certainly, if you made anything that same way now of blending the new make spirits, you wouldn't be able to call it Scotch whisky. That you're breaching the rules of the Scotch Whisky Association.
Yeah, I know the new regulations.
This is unique, beyond unique, you know. And each of the Hazelwood SKUs, very, very limited volumes. I think blended at birth is maybe a couple of hundred bottles for the world, you know. So these things are very rare. And certainly unique, and it's just a pleasure to work on.
It's an amazing collection, and they're definitely collectible and fit for investment kind of bottles, actually.
Sure.
So I always tell my followers and readers, buy two because you will drink one and you need to keep one.
Our customer base is certainly, it's small. It's a small business, and it's a new business with the oldest liquids. But certainly collecting is a big part of that, and we're finding people buying whole sets, collections of 8 at a time, and sometimes 2, and 2 of everything for that purpose, sometimes 3. So the price points also make it accessible that you don't feel so bad about drinking it. Yeah, but we'll start to see it coming back up on the secondary market, on the auction sites in a couple of years, we think. Yeah, which is great. I mean, more than happy.
By having tasted these whiskies, I don't want people just to put it on the, the shelf and just, just adore the beautiful bottle, but to enjoy the whiskey. That's why I think it's quite important, because it was a very diverse tasting profile, and actually that reminded me you're coming from wine industry also, because wine has an incredible, portfolio of different tastes. The aroma wheel is huge, and different grapes and maturation and everything gives this kind of how would you compare the wine industry and whiskey industry in that sense, maybe?
Well, I think it's very different, to be honest. It is, because the whiskey industry is, I would say, levels of passion and complexity and knowledge that is required is similar, probably a bit more complicated in wine, but the wine industry is not brand driven in the same way, so it's a lot a lot more diverse and fragmented. So, and I think when brands play the biggest part of what you do, it changes the industry from not having brands lead. So, and it's certainly full of the same level of enthusiasm for the products, and the levels of detail that our customers and consumers want to know is similar. The levels of understanding real history and heritage and family ownership is particularly in the whiskey business, it's a big plus. So that is similar, but the way these products are taken to market is different.
That's a great answer. Plus, it's now people may think, oh, you're from the family and everything, but you are very much into wine. You're WSET level 4, and you're in the board of trustees for WSET. So what would you say about education, about wine culture, whiskey culture, the educational part of it?
I think certainly at the WSET that the number of people applying to do the courses and the exams is just growing exponentially, and a lot of that is driven by the growth in spirits interest anyway, but also going back to the educated consumer, and it's much easier, more than it ever was before, to be able to read up on what you want to know, and people's interest in heritage and provenance and what they're drinking is far greater than it ever was. So it's super important. We spend a lot of time educating ourselves about the whiskies and the processes, and names. Yeah, it's all driven by consumer demand, really thirst for knowledge.
Exactly. I believe there's a great interest both in wine and whiskeys,
yes,
which is very, encouraging also.
Yeah.
It's very encouraging. People, especially young people, actually, they are very, whenever I write something, whenever I start an educational program, or whenever I publish videos like this, there's great interest to learn, and they take notes. Some barmaids, use my book as textbooks, and they take notes next to it. It makes me really happy.
It's incredible what they want to learn. I've really noticed it. I'd say even in the last 10 years.
Yeah, there's especially in the last 5-10 years, there's great interest. William Grant and Sons, of course, over the years had great masters, and I also had the privilege to meet with David Stewart, Brian Kinsman, and I was very lucky because when I was inducted as a keeper of quay, it was the same year when Brian was inducted as master keeper of the quay. So we had a chat. It was like 3 years ago, I believe. These are all legendary names, and David, it's like he's a legendary name in business also, and now he's he's retiring, and
he's retired, but he was in the office last week. So
I'm sure. Yeah, they never retire. I mean, there's this honorary titles, and they would. But I believe he give over to Kelsey McKechnie, and Kelsey, that's great. And for House of Hazelwood, I believe it's Aile Muir.
So Aile reports into Kelsey, so Kelsey's mentioning
so they're
Aile,
oh, perfect.
And then Kelsey works for Brian, so you've got a nice chain of
perfect
of expertise that's being handed down, and Aile's just doing an amazing job. I was with her last week. We were filming at the house for a charity bottling we've done it's called the Demeter Collection, and it focuses on women in the whiskey industry. So it was very fitting we were able to put Hazelwood into the auction, and a one-off bottle called, and we are able to tell the story of Janet, the wee Janet Sheed, and myself being the custodian of the casks, really from a family point of view, and then Aile being the one who creates the liquid. So it's a great story. It's a great story.
Plus, I'm really, it's also the last 5-10 years, I believe. I'm sure you very well know that it's a very male-dominant industry, but over the years we see, women in higher also directorial roles, and like Kelsey or Aile, creating these wonderful whiskies. How do you see that? Are we there yet, or there's some room to grow?
There's room to grow, of course, but I would say since I certainly joined the whiskey business 13-14 years ago, it's a very different place, and there's more women. I mean, we're lucky in our business. We've always had a lot of strong women in the business and in the family, so we have the opportunity to support more women through the industry, and that came out clearly when we were doing this Demeter thing recently about actually asking ourselves, we've got that, we've got lots of influential, high-level women in our company, so it's the industry's certainly much different than it was.
Definitely, there are many blenders, master distillers, also in the bigger conglomerates, whiskey conglomerates, we see many directorial positions.
Than there's ever been.
I mean, in that sense, of course, there's not just in whiskey business. In all businesses, there's room to grow, but I believe there's this positive change.
So, women make better tasters. They have multi-dimensional
exactly.
So perfect for the blending job.
That's also scientifically correct. I'm a physician, so I read much about this because of the olfactory, because of the olfactory systems and everything. It's a scientific fact, actually. So you have these great casks. We have you. There's Aile, and how is it going to continue? The House of Hazelwood will continue.
Oh well, yes. So I mean, as I said, we're so lucky with the sheer volume of the inventory. There's a lot of small parcels, and our next release will be July, August time, and we'll be releasing 2 sets a year. And so in the sets you have 4 of the Charles Gordon, 4 of the Legacy. So we're doing that twice a year, and the next lot is coming soon. So still finishing off some of the names, which is always the fun part of the business. But But we have, you know, some great stock parcels, and you know, at our first tasting in the blending room, we had 140 samples, and we've released 19 bottles to this date.
So you still have some.
I still have quite a lot to go,
Oh,
and,
wow.
and we are continually topping up these stock parcels and finding interesting things and waiting, you know, trying things to see. You know, we have the ethos with the Hazelwood business: it's ready when it's ready. You know, we don't release it unless it's remarkable, but we keep finding remarkable things.
A brand that everybody will talk about, and if you
Yeah.
continue adding up to
Yeah.
the incredible range, I believe it will be also a new chapter, also a new tick in the Scotch whiskey history as a
I hope so. I
as
hope
a
so,
brand.
because
Yeah.
it's just a real honour to be able to bring these liquids, which are a legacy from Charlie and Sandy Gordon, to the market. You know,
Yeah.
and we started talking about this 10 so years ago when Charlie passed away, and now here we are, literally in the early days of the company, and to be part of that is just fantastic.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. It was a great chat, and hopefully we'll taste the new range again in Istanbul, in
Sure,
Turkey,
yeah.
or maybe in Scotland,
Yeah.
maybe in House of
You'll let
Hazelwood.
me know if you're coming to
I'm
Scotland.
definitely going
I'll
to
take
be
you to
visiting.
that house if
Thank
you
you.
come.
Thank you so much, and hope to see you again in Istanbul. Thank you so much for accepting to be
My
in my
pleasure.
channel also.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.